Rockville Housing Enterprises Housing Choice Voucher Program Landlord's Obligations. The following are the obligations of the landlord under the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The landlord is to certify that they are the legal or legally designated agent for the unit and that the tenant has no ownership of their dwelling. 2, as the landlord, they should carefully screen the family for suitability for tenancy, including the family's background with respect to such factors as rent and utility payment history, caring for the unit and the premises, respecting the rights of others to the peaceful enjoyment of their housing and drug-related and criminal activity that is a threat to the life, safety, or property of others. 3, as the landlord must provide RHE, an IRS Form W-9 with a tax identification number or social security number, direct deposit bank account authorization, a copy of the current City of Rockville license, and a copy of the required state LBP certifications, which means lead-based paint, before any HAP payments can be made. 4, as the landlord, you must provide the above cited list requirements when submitting the request for tenancy approval, also known as the RFTA. Owners are strongly encouraged to collect a security deposit. The security deposit may not be in excess of private market practice, cannot exceed amounts charged by the owner to unassisted tenants, and cannot exceed amounts permitted by state or local law. Local law states that the security deposits may not exceed 2 months' rent. Number 6, as the landlord, you must complete the lead-based paint disclosure form if the unit was built before January 1st, 1978. 7, as the landlord, you must also supply RHE with a copy of the lead-based paint certificate if the unit was built before January 1, 1978, when submitting an RFTA application. 8, as the landlord, you may collect 30 to 50% of the family's annual income as the rent portion of the voucher program participant while waiting on RHE to generate the HAP and provide a rent breakdown. 9, as the landlord, you must ensure that the unit passes inspection before a voucher program participant moves in. If the tenant moves in before the unit passes inspection, they will be responsible for the owner's full amount of rent. 13, as the landlord, you must understand that family members listed on the housing assistance payments contract are the only individuals permitted to reside in the unit. 14, as the landlord, you also must understand that RHE must grant prior written approval for other persons to be added to the household. 15, also, as the landlord, you are not permitted to live in a unit while receiving the housing assistance payments. 16, as the landlord, you must also agree to comply with all requirements contained in the lease, the tenancy addendum, the housing assistance payment, also known as the HAP contract, parts A, B, and C. 17, as the landlord, you must fully understand and agree with the terms and conditions of the lease, the tenancy addendum, and the HAP contract. 18, as the landlord, you must submit to the tenant for their consideration and to RHE for their review any new lease or lease revision a minimum of 60 days in advance of the effective date of the lease or lease revision. 19, as the landlord, you must provide RHE with a written request for any rent increase a minimum of 90 days in advance of the increase and in accordance with the provisions of the lease and HAP contract. 20, as the landlord, you must understand that RHG determines the tenant portion of contract rent and that it is illegal to charge any additional amounts for rent or any other item not specified in the lease, which RHG has not specifically approved. 21, as the landlord, you may not lease a unit to any family members, including all occupants who are related in the following ways: parent, child, grandchild, grandparent, sister, or brother. And also as the landlord, RHG may grant prior written approval if the rental unit will provide a reasonable accommodation for a family member who is a person with disabilities. 22, as the landlord, you may only assign the HAP contract to a new owner with the prior written consent of RHG. 23, as the landlord, your obligations are to comply with the housing assistance payments, also known as HAP contract, to perform necessary maintenance so the unit continues to be in compliance with the Inspire inspection standards. Also, as the landlord, you understand that you will submit a current City of Rockville renter license with each biannual HUS Inspire inspection. Failure to submit the current City of Rockville rental license will result in a failed inspection. 25, as the landlord, you also understand that you are responsible for notifying RHG immediately in writing when the assisted unit becomes vacant. You also understand that the HAP contract and payment will terminate immediately. 26, as the landlord, you should attempt to resolve disputes between you and the tenant and contact RHE in writing only in serious disputes that we can resolve. 27, as the landlord, you also must contact the City of Rockville's Landlord and Tenant Affairs Department to address unresolved issues between you and your tenant. Also, as the landlord, you must promptly give RHE a copy of the owner eviction notice to the tenant and comply with the City of Rockville's eviction procedures. 29, you also acknowledge that you may request to attend the landlord briefing, and you must adhere to the Housing Choice Voucher Program rules and regulations and be briefed on the Housing Choice Voucher Program. 30, as the landlord, your failure to fulfill any of the above may result in withholding, abatement, or termination of housing assistance payments for the contract unit or another unit, and or being barred from participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And 30, as the landlord, you understand and knowingly supply any false information or incomplete or anything inaccurate that it is punishable under federal or state criminal law. This will conclude our Housing Choice Voucher landlord briefing.